and I'd sort of engaged with my friends and done that bit. And so I started to look around at what I could do within Auchtermuchty, within my village, to see whether I could get more people involved in climate action.
At the Cottage Family Centre, we support families with children, usually under 8. We help them with lots of different things that might be going on in their life. You know, climate change is becoming more mainstream. It is a real issue for today, and we thought actually we have lots of families that we support that it's probably not their first thought, but there is probably ways to introduce that to our community that we work with.
We did some actual on-the-ground activities. So I guess our most successful activities were one session where we got a bike mechanic to fix up all the village bikes, and at the same time we had lots of electric vehicles join us in the school playground, so everyone could have a look at all the EVs that were in the village. So we tried to get a range of different EVs that people owned and their owners, so they could come and, you know, people could come and talk to real owners. And then another one was we did a tour of some houses where people had done some activities, some improvements on their houses to make them more climate friendly. So we went to see a biomass boiler and solar panels, and someone who had a house that had been renovated to passive standards, and also an old property where they had like zoned heating, and we're in the process of putting in a heat pump, and that was very popular as well. People really enjoyed that. And for the food event, we had someone from Auchtermuchty come and do a food demonstration for us.
We focused on things like how to garden, how to grow your own foods, which is great because in the area that we are, there's a lot of poverty, so free food is a real incentive for parents, and the kids really enjoyed it too. They learned some gardening skills, and we also looked at, you know, how do we recycle. We looked at mini beasts and what they do in the garden, and we looked at cooking, which was probably our most popular workshop. You know, we grew things in the garden, and it was sort of like, what can we do with this? What foods can we make from this free food that we grew?
One top tip, I think, is we ran an evening session for discussing about electric vehicles, and we invited an external speaker to come to that, and that didn't work at all. I think it was far more successful having people in the village who owned electric vehicles talking about it. They were really positive about them, and they said how wonderful they were, and you know, and they could describe the reality of living with them in this village, right? So how do they charge them? How do they commute? You know, that was so important, whereas an external person didn't know anything about that.
I would say give it a go. It sounds daunting, having climate change conversations. You know, it doesn't have to be grand events. You know, it could be, you know, casual chats in a garden with cups of tea. It could be, we're going to potter about and do some planting. You know, we're going to look at the foods that we've grown and plan things, and, you know, just really informal. It doesn't have to be, you know, some grand thing. One that kind of stuck out to me actually is when we were sort of starting to talk about it, and one of the children, who was slightly older, she was about 8, turned around and said, "Oh yeah, we learned about climate change at school, but it was so boring, I've forgotten all about it." And I was just sort of like, well, that's why these, I suppose, conversations are important. It's the way that you frame it, because it can sound boring if you get, you know, really scientific, or you use a lot of, you know, like big words. Then sometimes kids are just like, nah, switch off. But, you know, if we're going about in the garden and we were sort of talking about, oh, well, this is how we could encourage plants to grow, and, you know, we need the sun and the water, and how can we look after these? What role does climate change play in this? Then, you know, it was more practical, so it helped them. They found it fun, and I think it helped it stick better in their head.
But probably the most productive thing that we did was to tell people what we did after the fact. So we wrote up a little thing for the village newsletter, and we had a picture of us all going to our Dross farm to learn about regenerative farming and things like that went into the village newspaper. And that was really, I think that was probably the biggest impact that we had, was not the posters around town asking people to put their time into doing things, but having something in the newsletter that said, we've done this, we're talking about this, you know, there's people in the village that are interested in this and we're concerned about this. And I think that was, yeah, so that would be my advice. So we've set up an online, a group called Sustainable Muchty, which didn't exist before. We've got around about 15 members. We're sort of recruiting people slowly, which is nice. It's sort of growing organically. And we had a first online meeting recently, and we discussed things that we could do, and we put together a list of activities that we could do.
Because we had that experience of talking about climate change and, you know, the workshop on climate change that we did, it means that if I'm having a group outside, you know, sometimes we can just have these casual conversations of, oh, what did you think about the weather? You know, what do you think about climate change? How often do you recycle? Nothing grand, but it means that we have the resources there to hold these workshops, and, you know, we can start having conversations with climate change.